all heard the saying, up and away by Superman, created by Mark Miller. Since the beginning of time, humans and mankind have been fascinated with the bird's ability to fly. As reported by the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, in 3500 BC, King Etna was featured on a coin flying on an eagle's back. In America, the Wright brothers are credited with the first flight. However, they just perfected flight. They didn't invent it. I will discuss some of the myths about flight and focus on some of the actual human trials of flight. In an article from NASA titled "How Do We Learn How to Fly?" published August 2010, talks about a few myths of flight. And here's a couple Greek myths. Bellerophon the Valiant captured Pegasus, a winged horse, and rode her into battle. Next, Icarius and Daedalus, a father and son both in prison, they both escaped by using wings made of wax. Daedalus flew too high to the sun, and his wings melted, and he fell to his death. Persian king Caius attached eagles to his throne and flew around his kingdom. Alexander the Great harnessed griffins to a basket and flew around his throne. As I've stated, the discovery of flight became an important part of the mythical legend. But let's turn our focus on actual proven trials of flight. From 1000 BC to 400 BC, China discovered kites and could fly and used them to carry men to scout troops. They used them in religious ceremonies and used them to test weather conditions. Kites were the forerunners to balloons and gliders. Ancient Greek engineer Hero of Alexandria worked with steam and air pressure to create sources of power. He mounted a sphere on a water kettle, and with the fire below, he turned the water into steam. Gas traveled through these L-shaped pipes and rotated the ball and created thrust. This was the first invention of an engineer in flight. This was the first invention of an engine in flight. 1485, Leonardo da Vinci designed a plane called Ornithopter. His drawings illustrated birds' tails and wings and had ideas for machines to carry men. He also had drawings of machines to test the wings. The Ornithopter was never created, but the present-day helicopter is based on its design. In 1783, Joseph and Jean Montgolfier, two brothers, were the first to invent the hot air balloon. They used smoke from a fire to blow hot air into a silk bag, which was attached to a basket. The first passengers of the balloon were a sheep, a rooster, and a duck. The first manned flight was on November 21st, 1783. From 1799 through the 1850s, George Cayley worked to discover flight. He designed many different versions of gliders that used the movements of the body to control. For over 50 years, he continued to improve his design of gliders. He changed the shape of the wings so that air flowed over them correctly. He also designed a tail that would provide stability for the gliders. He recognized the need for power to fly for periods of long time. As I've discussed, the discovery of flight is progressing nicely. Let's talk about more recent events in history that provided contributions to the Wright brothers' success. In an article by Mary Bellis called Early History of Flight, in 1891, German engineer Otto Lilienthal studied aerodynamics and worked to design a glider that would fly. He was the first person to design a glider that would carry a person and was able to fly long distances. Based on his studies of how birds fly, he wrote a book on aerodynamics that was published in 1899 that the Wright brothers used as basis for their designs. He was killed after more than 2,500 flights when a gust of wind caused him to lose control. 1903, the Wright brothers. Wright brothers read about all of the earlier developments of flight. They made a small contribution to flight control by twisting the wings in flight. They used kites to test their ideas. Like George Cayley, they tested different shapes of gliders to see if they would fly. Next, they designed a 12 horsepower engine that would give them the thrust that they needed to fly. On December 17, 1903, the Flyer lifted off north of Big Kill, Devil Hill, North Carolina at 10:35 a.m. and it weighed 600 pounds. Okay, to summarize, mankind is now able to fly. Advancements in aviation has enabled us to carry men, cargo, and weapons all over the world. The Wright brothers are credited for putting mankind in the sky like a bird, but the reality is they contributed to and continued a dream that started by Greek mythology back in early history. The next frontier is space, and I hope that mankind can use aviation as a template to conquer this as well. To infinity and beyond. Big stuff.